All right, welcome back to the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. I am your host, really humbled, man. I just have such a good time with this. I'm so glad you continue to come back week after week. But I'm your host, Mike Cunningham, here at Gill Athletics. We've got another one. We just got over the hump. We just got done with episode 200. So we're going to have guest number 201 here today. Before we get started, kind of two things. One is I just want to apologize up front. I'm battling a little bit of a cold. So I've got this cough drop so I don't cough all during today's episode. So if you hear me kind of smacking around with this cough drop, I'm so sorry. I'm not a good enough editor to get all those things out. So just bear with me on this one. Appreciate your patience. And two, I want to give a shout out. Anytime someone takes the time and is conscientious enough to leave us a review on Apple, I like to give them a shout out. So a good friend of ours, Jonathan Medeiros, I was actually on his podcast. I was humbled to be on his podcast. Recently left us a 5-star rating on Apple and commented and said, I look forward to each new episode that comes out. Great podcast. So Mr. Medeiros, man, thank you so much for doing that. If you want to get your shout out read online, hey, it's pretty easy. Just go in and leave one on Apple Podcast or any of the other ones that have reviews as well. Okay, enough housekeeping. Let's get started with today's show. Help me welcome from Arizona State, the head coach, the director, the grand poobah. I think that's actually what's on his business card. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful Mr. Dion Miller. Dion, how are you, sir?
How are you doing, Mike?
It's supposed to be spring here. Let's compare weather. So it's spring. I think today when we're recording is actually the first day of spring. Today we have a high of 50, and that was like 10 to 15 degrees higher than what it was yesterday. So it's like feels good today to be 50. What is it in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona there, man?
Today's high is 74, I believe.
So that's chilly. That's chilly out there.
That is chilly. Believe it or not. That is chilly. You're right about that.
I remember I used to coach at Ball State, and then I went to Mississippi State. And I remember, at Ball State, it was like, hey, if it's 32 degrees, we're going outside because we'd miss half our outdoor season. And then I remember going to Starkville, and it was like 70 degrees one day. And they're like, they had long sleeves on, and they're like, can we go inside? And I'm like, man, it's 70. Like, it's all about perspective of what you're used to, man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, we know it gets hot there at Arizona State, and we've got a lot to cover today here with you. So let's get hopping. Let's get going here. Dion, at some point, assuming you were an athlete, we'll probably figure that part out. But at some point, coaching had to switch in your mind. It had to go from something that was done to you, hey, go run this, go lift that, to maybe at some point it flipped you and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Like maybe I could become a coach. Like maybe that could actually be a profession for me. Let's kind of go back to ground zero here. Where does coaching begin for you?
As I reflect back in my thoughts, in my memories, where did coaching begin, for me? I could say it began my first experience, I guess in junior high. Obviously for me, my coaches were primarily my mentees, mentors, and were fathers to me, And so for me, the aspect of coaching has always been a guiding force, Mike, in my life. And so more importantly, I can say that when I identified, my junior high coach as someone who was an influencer, who was a key figure in terms of introducing me to sports, and help develop me as the the person I am today. I can tell you that I always liked the idea of a coach, and so let me just jump forward to when I graduated college there at Texas Tech in 1998. I couldn't think of a profession that I wanted to do more than coaching. And so for me, coaching has always been a desire for me. I enjoy impacting young people. And more importantly, this sport has given so much to me. And I really feel that it is my duty, and an honor for me to, give back to the youth and give back to the young men and women what the sport has definitely given me.
So two things. Do you remember junior high coach's name? We love giving shout outs. What was their name?
Well, my junior high coach's name, he's gone, but Coach Austin is my junior high coach's name. He coached, but obviously for me, he was definitely a dear coach to me. So
So when you think of Coach Austin, like it was interesting to see your face as you started thinking about when you're talking about the role he played and the mentorship and how he, helped you guide you through the sports first, and then through that comes life as well.
uh-huh.
Your face kind of softened, like there was like I could tell automatically, like, oh, this is someone that's special to you.
Oh
And
yeah.
as you look back now, because now you have perspective, right? You've coached a lot of kids now at this
Uh-huh.
point. You've been through a lot. When you look back at your interactions with Coach Austin, and maybe you can kind of like almost like take yourself back there and you see Coach Austin working with kids at your junior high. What was it about his style that was so attractive to you? That was like, oh man, wait a minute, I want to please him. I want to be a better person for him. And then you end up becoming him. You become a coach. What was it about his style?
Well, it was just his. He's very sincere, and for me, that was important for me. And obviously, he was very demanding in terms of his expectations were very high, and so being direct, you know, um, he came in my life in a point in time where I needed direction.
Mm.
So he definitely gave me that. And so for me, that was something that, you know, I definitely catered to. I think that I like that style because, I needed attention. I wanted attention. And he was a coach that would definitely give his athletes attention and point out the things that he needed for us to do. And so for me, I just fell in love with that concept.
When you say he gave attention to athletes, sometimes we think of that negatively, of like, oh, well, yeah, coach pays attention to the kids who are doing really well. Did he
Mhm.
work with, if you were a 70-second quarter miler guy to a 50-second quarter miler guy, which would be a huge run, especially in junior high, was he the kind of coach that worked with, if you were on the team, he was going to work with, if you put in the effort, he was going to put in the effort, or did he really just work on the studs like you, Dion?
No, he was a coach that worked with everybody. He's a coach that demanded perfection from everybody. Everybody had a role to play, so he definitely demanded expectation out of everyone.
Awesome. As you go through junior high, then you go to high school, and you alluded you went to Texas Tech for undergrad.
Mhm.
What was the goal? Was as you went into Texas Tech, when you were looking at a major to pick, and in a future career, did you go in thinking, yeah, I'm going to be a coach? So did you study some kind of undergrad of like exercise science or something, or what was the goal at that moment?
Yeah, I first went in undecided because I didn't know what route I wanted to go to in terms of coaching and teaching. So for me, I went in undecided. I did major in exercise sports science
Yeah.
um, with a minor in health. And so for me, I wanted to go the route of first I thought I'd be just a physical education
Mhm.
teacher with accreditations of special education. And so my primary goal was to be a adaptive PE physical education instructor, where I would create individual education plans for the physically impaired or disability children with disabilities. And so that was really my passion in terms of that. And so once I decided to go that route, got into it, that was the route I went in terms of just overall my undergrad, and I always wanted that to be something that um, you know obviously was very important to me to give back in terms of and I catered towards that because I was introduced to that actual certification and really fell in love with it. So I really never really decided to get a degree in coaching. More importantly, I felt like with my athletic experience and the things that I accomplished from high school going into college, I felt like those are going to be my greatest attributes towards coaching. So I went the adaptive PE route.
So explain that a little bit, because that is, I mean, when I look at, so you know, my heart for coaches in
Mhm.
general is huge. When I look at when it's Special Olympics, special needs, adaptive abilities, I mean, your heart. My best friend in this whole wide world, he's like my brother. His younger
Mhm.
brother had Down syndrome, so when I was in high school, I would help. I was
Mhm.
not a tutor, but an aide in those classes, and oh my, I mean, it is one of the hardest professions. I'd watch those teachers, and now I see it in our school district here, where I live in Illinois. I mean, you have to have a huge heart to be a teacher. Your heart you have to have like 5 huge hearts to be in that field. Why specifically that field? Did you have any background in that?
Well, I mentioned my junior high coach. He had a prosthetic leg, and so for me, once again, the very person that introduced me to sports, overcame some adversities, and I learned really quick that you can't make any excuses. He never made any excuse, and he had a prosthetic leg,
Wow.
and so for me, that was just something that I did that was very dear to me, and I felt like that would be a great a great career to go into.
Yeah, that is amazing. Wow, that is so cool. I love how the influence of people in your past affected your present and future, man. I love that. That's so awesome. So you go to Texas Tech. Was Wes Kittley your coach? Was he there when you were there?
Wes Kelly was coaching at Abilene Christian at the time.
Okay.
My coach, I had two coaches, head coaches there at Texas Tech. Coach Corky Oglesby recruited me, um, and obviously he was my coach. And then obviously when Corky retired, Greg Shoulders became the head coach
Yeah.
at Texas Tech, and so he finished up my last 2 years, Coach Shoulders. And,
Okay.
so those were my two head coaches at Texas Tech.
Not to spoil as we go through the journey here, but I know you coached at Texas Tech, and I was like, oh wait, that'd be really cool. I didn't know if Wes was your head coach or not. That'd have been really cool. So, what kind of not what kind of athlete you are, because it doesn't matter if you were honestly a collegiate 60-second 400-meter runner or a 45. It really does not matter in regards to your coaching. But what was your events, and I mean, you went to Tech, so I have to assume you were pretty good. Not many kids go on Tech's team that aren't, pretty good kids. What kind of what events did you do?
I was a short sprinter,
Okay.
so I ran the 100 and 200 both relays.
Yeah.
So I could say a very talented sprinter. Had a lot of upside. Um, Started off at Texas Tech. Obviously, we were in the Southwest Conference. So I'm dating myself, Mike.
Yeah. Holy cow.
So you can imagine that was baptism by fire for sure.
I was about to say, hold on, because we have plenty of people right now that are like Southwest. Did he mean Southeast Conference? Wait, I didn't know Tech was in the South. No, he means the Southwest Conference. And we've got to stay here for a second, because the Southwest Conference was legendary. So
Mhm.
talk to us a little bit about that conference. Who was in it? What was happening? Because it was, I mean, you think the SEC is great, and it is. And I'm an SEC homer, so I think it's amazing. The Southwest Conference was no joke at all at what they were doing. Talk to us a little bit about that conference.
Oh man, we had TCU, we had obviously Texas Tech, Texas, Baylor, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
At the time we had SMU. You're talking about the granddaddies of them all in terms of great track and field program.
Was Arkansas in there?
Arkansas was in there for yeah, they were.
Okay, I thought they were there for some point. Yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. And this was, you talk about baptism of fire. Like, this was a unbelievable conference.
Unbelievable conference, tremendous. You talk about the Bronson brothers at Rice, to Dion Miner at Baylor, Tony Miller at Baylor. Whole 9 yards. TCU had a slew of guys that were very competitive, very fast. So it was definitely University of Houston. Uh,
Mm.
Chris Jones to Sam Jefferson. I mean, you just name them.
It was kind of the conference back then.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
That's awesome. So you were a short sprint. I kept using quarter mile examples because I thought you were I think I just think of you as quarter mile because everywhere you've gone, there's been great quarter milers there. So I just think of that in my head, like, oh, you must have been a quarter miler, but you were a 1-2 guy.
Yes, sir. It was
Any
one
any field event, any long jumping or hurdles or anything like that? Just straight 1-2.
straight 1-2, straight 1-2.
Did you ever try them?
No, sir. Never tried. Never tried anything, but I ran 100 and 200. Those were my events for sure.
If you don't want to try the hurdles or long jump or anything else like that, be really good at the 1 and 2 and be like, hey, look, man, I need to focus. I'm pretty good over here. So you get this amazing degree from Texas Tech, exercise and sports. Would you say science or physiology?
Exercise sports science. Yes,
Sports
sir.
science, right?
Mhm.
What do you do? So you now you're going to be a coach, right? As you get
Mhm.
towards graduation, you're like, yep, this is what I want to do. What was and this is where every kid right now, it's in March right now, they're getting ready to graduate in May and June, and they want to be a coach. So they're like, what is my first step? What was your first step? Did you go to graduate assistant, undergrad, volunteer? What did you do?
My first step, I went back home. Of course, I went back to familiar grounds, and I became the head girls track coach at South Hills High School there in Fort Worth, Texas. Um, and they had just opened up South Hill, so we had freshmen only, and I was to start that program. And so from South, I coached there for a year, and then I got offered, obviously, an assistant coaching position to go coach back at my alma mater, which is Everman High School there in Everman, Texas, which is located just about 10 miles outside of Fort Worth city limits there, South Fort Worth. And so Everman, I graduated from Everman, so I went to Everman and coached there. And obviously, I under Coach Atmore, who was my coach there at Everman. I was just assistant, and so so that was a great experience to go back and coach at my
I
high
was
school.
going to say, excuse me, let's get there. But real quick, as you started coaching high school and sound like high school freshmen girls to start out with, what was that experience like? Because on one day in May, you were a senior 100-meter sprinter at Texas Tech. You were Dion. And then in, let's call it January of the next year, you're Coach Miller. You're staring
Yeah.
at these 14-year-old girls. And it's one thing, I mean, you knew what you did for workouts, but I'm not sure you can sit there and look at 14-year-old girls and go, okay, let's just do the same things. How did you, what was your first like adaptation of like, okay, here's what I did, but here's how I need to coach?
Well, just understanding the teaching aspect of it, introducing these young people into the sport. And so the difference was, I didn't put a lot of expectations on them. Uh, my charge was to teach them how to work and teach them the events. And so for me, just to put on my teaching hat, and obviously, I tried to be a mentor to all the young ladies, and also coach the men as well, young boys as
Mm.
well. And so if you coach in the state of Texas, you get a coaching stipend. And so obviously for me, I was labeled the head girls track coach, but also coach
Hmm.
work with all the boys as well. And so just teaching them the sport, obviously as freshmen, everything's new to you. Back then, we didn't have a lot of our athletes that were running club track. And so for me, it was the very first time that these athletes, experienced track and field. And so, we had some great athletes. And so my mindset, coming from a collegiate, athlete going into being a high school coach, I wanted them to understand, the basis of things and how do you get to the point to where you're fortunate enough to get recruited and catch the eye of some college coaches.
And as a high school coach at this point, were you only coaching sprints, or were you also in charge of jumps or any other field events?
Like I said, I was in charge of on the women's on the girls side. I was in charge of, obviously the whole program. But then I primarily event coach. I coach the sprints. I had a jumps coach as well as a distance coach,
Okay.
and so I coached the sprints on both sides, boys and girls.
Okay.
That's
I was wondering if you had to do an event that you didn't do, how did you adapt to that? But at this point, you're just doing the sprinters at this point, both boys and girls.
yes, yes.
And then you go on to your alma mater there at Everman. Now, this is unique. Your head coach who coached you is still there.
Yeah,
So
Coach Atmore.
yeah, how does that dynamic work? For him, yesterday you were this 17-year-old kid on the team, and now here you come as an assistant for him. How did that dynamic work out?
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, Coach Atmore welcomed me back with open arms, and of course, I didn't tell you this in the beginning, but I started off as a football. I played football, and so that was definitely my number one passion. So not only did I, coach track at Everman when I went back, I also coached, football as well. And Coach Dale Keeling, he was the head coach at the time, and so for me, I had a freshman team that I coached there and worked with the freshman team, and then obviously worked with the track team, in the spring. So my plate was full. My plate
Yeah.
was full. But Coach Atmore, welcomed me back with open arms. It was definitely refreshing to walk the hallways of my alma mater,
Hmm.
and really just go back down, memory lane and reflect on, what got me to the point you know, the point where I could, go to Texas Tech and get a degree. And so that was definitely refreshing to go back.
Now, I didn't want to assume, but I did assume that a sprinter in the state of Texas, that of course you played football. I mean, that was just like I'm not sure it's allowed not to also
Yeah.
play football. But now thinking about how good you were as a sprinter and you went to Texas Tech, did you play or try to play football there at all, or was it just track and field?
No, when I decided just to accept the track scholarship, I decided to put my football cleats up. And but I never went out. We got asked several times, but
Right.
I never went out to
Yeah.
play football.
Do you ever look back and regret that at all? Like, man, what if I'd have played football?
Yeah, I do. In terms of my abilities and what I thought I could do in the sport of football. But I can look back and say, that God has a plan, and His plan was for me to go out and get my degree at Texas Tech and run track. And so I just followed the plan, Mike. Just followed the plan.
That's the way to do it. If every athlete would just do that with their coach too, just follow the plan. We'll be okay. We'll
You're
get
right
there
about
much
that.
easier.
Right about that. Right about
So
that.
you're at Everman, you're coaching football, you're back to some football roots here,
Mhm.
and you're coaching with your former head coach. Did you, so he coached you in the sprints, and now you're coaching sprints there. Was there any stylistic difference that you had picked up from your time through Texas Tech and even your year at South Hills that conflicted at all with his style? And if so, how did you guys work that out?
Well, I have to correct you there. Coach Charles Stewart was my head coach when I ran,
Okay.
and Coach Atmore was the assistant. Coach
Gotcha.
Atmore assumed the head coaching job. Obviously, once I graduated,
Mhm.
and then after I graduated. So when I came back, Coach Atmore was the head coach,
Right.
and so I can tell you that God rest his soul, Coach Charlie Stewart. Coach Stewart was, our defensive coordinator. So he definitely had that mentality of high expectations. He was very aggressive with his tone, which I cater to, as an athlete.
Mhm.
And so for me, you're talking about, it was just like a safe haven for me
Right.
because Coach Atmore, obviously, he coached us in the sprints, and so in him working with us in the sprints, I felt like I was at home, and it was just back to business as usual.
Yeah, nice. And how many years were you there at your alma mater?
I stayed there for a year and a half, and so I decided, you know, to go to Texas Tech. After Coach Kitley um, got the job, I think during '99, 2000. I applied for the job. He had a job opening, and so his first year there, I decided not to go, but then I assumed the position there at Texas Tech. Um, the fall of 2000, fall of 2000.
Were you so this year, these 2.5 years of high school coaching, did you always have in your mind that you wanted to coach college, or were you completely like, is this Texas Tech thing was I'm gonna call it a dream come true because you wanted to go to college, or was it because, oh, it's my alma mater as well? Like there's a draw there possibly too.
Well, I you know had a tremendous opportunity to coach in high school, so I wanted to experience that. And so going in, it was baptism by fire. You talk about, hats off to these football coaches, especially young coaches that are going out scouting, you know, uh,
Mm,
leaving on Thursday night, coaching freshman football, coaching JV football, then have to go scout and get the scouting report back
that's
for the
right.
ball team. So for me, I did all that, and
Mm,
loved every bit of it. But there was something missing in terms of, I always liked the I guess the feeling that I had, being at that national championship,
mm.
and track and field. And so fell in love with the sport in terms of, coaching, high school. I was like, you know what? I wonder if I could coach at the next level.
Mm.
And so when the opportunity came, I just took advantage of it. Definitely did.
And you had a fork in the road there, kind of two forks, right? One is stay high school, another one's go collegiate. The other one there is you're coaching football. Any thought to continuing down that path and coaching football, whether it's high school, college, and beyond?
I never thought about it, to that aspect, but that could have been an avenue that I could have went down.
Mhm.
You got, I can tell you that same freshman football team I had, uh, they went on to win the state championship as varsity. Uh,
Wow.
those young men, and then they graduated. So it was exciting to see those young men, win the state championship there at Everman. But those guys, did a really good job. And now those coaches, because we got like Coach Leon Paul. He's coach
Yes.
at Lancaster High School.
Hmm.
He was on that freshman team.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that right? Oh, that's
Oh yeah.
so cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was exciting, but you know, um, you know, never really went down that road. But it definitely, if I'd have had someone like you to, put that on, uh, you know, pose that to me, maybe I would have thought about it. But no, track is my passion. I love track and field, and so I took advantage of the opportunity.
Who knows, man? You could have been a fired coach who's getting paid 7 million a year to do whatever you want. You never know. That could have been the path.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
I sit back, when I first got into coaching, I was sitting in my fraternity house staring at the high school De La Salle in Chicago and watching football. Their field was right there. And maybe similar to you, I had such a passion for track. I called the track coach up to see if he needed a volunteer assistant, et cetera. And that set me on my path to coaching, which, you and I have been very similar. We had a lot until I got out. We had a lot of the, journeys together there. And I always, now that I sit back, I go, what if I'd have called the football coach? Maybe I'd have been $1 million coordinator, get fired. I'm still okay. I just made the wrong phone call. Maybe. No, I made the right phone call. You,
Maybe
you did
so, Mike.
too. You made the
Maybe
right
so.
decision too. So you get to Texas Tech around 2000, which I didn't know that because that's awesome. You and I don't know. Do you remember when you and I first met?
I know I don't remember.
I see you're much more important to me than vice versa, because I remember
Okay.
exactly where we met, my friend. It was the 2001 junior college championships in Odessa. And I was the
Okay.
head coach at Neosho. You and I were sitting
Oh,
in the
wow.
stands, and I was just enamored that a guy from Texas Tech was right there. I was like, "Oh, I want to talk to this guy." And you and I were talking. You probably mentioned like, "Yeah, I was coaching high school last year, 2 years ago," and that probably like meant something to me. Like, "Oh, well, I started coaching high school, so like this means a lot." And you were, and I had no one for you to recruit, but you were one of the. There were several. I'm not going to say a few, but there were others that were on the other side of the coin that you didn't dismiss me just because I wasn't at Barton. You remember Barton at that time,
Mhm.
the triple jumper, Levan Sands, Walter Dave. I had no one. You could probably have added up all three of my triple jumpers, and I probably couldn't jump as far as Walter Davis did back then. But you talked to me like I was a human. Didn't matter that I didn't have anybody for you to recruit. And I still remember that to this day, sitting in that stadium. And I was like, man, this guy, because I wanted to be at a Big 12, SEC, so it was like, oh man,
Uh-huh.
here's this guy. He's at where I want to be. And you're talking to me like I matter. And that really, really meant a lot to me. And to this day says a lot about your character, my friend.
Man, I really appreciate that, man. That's definitely yeah, I don't remember that, but man, I tell you, you never know who that's why I tell everyone you got to watch what you say, how you say it, and for me that means a lot to me that I was able to embrace you, and because I know that was humble beginnings for the both of us for
That's
sure.
right, exactly. Amen. We were both learning, like, what are we doing here? So tell me, what's it like? I have a very special place in my heart for people who coach at their alma maters. Like that's a big deal to me. So you're back at your collegiate home at Texas Tech, and you're coaching collegiate track and field, and you're coaching collegiate track and field. This is the first time. I understand you ran it, but you didn't coach it until now. And you've got Wes Kitley, who is one of the best all-time coaches out there. He's
Yeah.
overseeing you. What was this experience like as you're now coaching in the collegiate side back at Texas Tech?
First of all, it was definitely great to go back to Texas Tech. Got to remember I had been removed, 2 years, and so for me going back, it was very exciting
Yeah.
to put on that take off that jersey and put on that polo, and so
Yeah.
very, very exciting. And so I had a lot of energy, Mike, a lot of energy. Uh, and you got to remember for me we didn't have that many athletes on the team when I was a student athlete at Texas Tech,
Mm.
and so you know, fast forward, when I arrived on campus, we had more athletes than we ever had on the team, and
Hmm.
combined men and women. And at the time, when I entered into Texas Tech as a freshman, we had separate programs, and
Oh.
so for me, it was refreshing. When I came back, we were a combined program, you know, and that's back when all the programs had started, combining,
Mhm.
and so we were combined, and so I mean, it was, brought a lot of energy into it. It was definitely exciting. Um, my coaching style, I didn't have a coaching style at the time,
Right.
and so for me, some of the athletes that were freshmen on the team when I graduated were still on the team. And
Oh.
so for me, it was good to see my old teammates, and then for me to be a coach, I felt like I wanted to gain that athlete's respect. I knew that I was a young coach, and so it was a lot of pressure because obviously with Coach Kitley, winning 40 plus national championships at Abilene Christian, it was definitely I had to definitely have my, be on my P's and Q's at all time.
So what did you do? What are you doing, at least at this point, for coaching education? And that coaching education could be what I call the formal side, whether it's USATF level ones and twos, things like that. Or just as important is the informal side. So mentors, anybody you're calling, anybody of like, hey, okay, so I got this tech job, guys. How do you do it at such and such university? What do you're we're similar. What do you do? What were you doing at this point for your coaching growth, your coaching education?
Well, I had no knowledge of coaching certification
Mm,
at all until I started coaching high school. And so, I'd had several opportunities to, go get my level one certification. And so for me, I had no knowledge of that at all. And I really didn't have the time, when I was coaching football
mm,
and coaching track in high school. And so when I went in to Texas Tech, that was one goal for me to do my level one. And so I had no higher education in track and field at all, other than my experiences.
mhm,
And so I really leaned on that, Mike, in terms of going into the job. And then, to answer your question about now, for me, I try to, surround myself with like-minded people. You never stop learning, in this sport, and so just talking with the, best coaches in the world as well as in the country, and you just, over a cup of coffee, or,
mm,
sitting down and just having, real honest conversation about, the X's and O's in terms of track and field, and so I try to put myself in the classroom anytime,
mm.
anytime I have an opportunity to sit in front of some coaches that I really respect, for sure.
I like how you put that. I try to put myself in the classroom, and you're not talking about the physical classroom of like going to do certifications necessarily. You're talking about if I'm, I'll use a common friend of ours, Mouse. If Mouse and I are talking, if I'm smart, I'm in the classroom. I'm listening. I'm asking questions. I'm not talking all that much. So I like how you put that. Like I'm always trying to put myself in the classroom.
Yeah.
Where did not everybody thinks that way. Um, where does that come from? Is that were any family members teachers, or obviously there's a lot of influence from Coach Austin back in the day, but where does that, like, hey man, I need to put myself in the classroom?
Well, you know what? I think he just started off from Sunday school, going to Sunday school, and
Yeah.
sitting in church. My grandmother was a stickler, and she demanded that we go to Sunday school, and so for me, I grew up in the church, and so you know, um, having that influence, I think it just taught me, how to listen, and how to listen, and learn things from others. And so I just always just kept that mindset in terms of when I'm interacting and I'm talking with someone. You can always learn something from someone, and that's a very important to know. Is that never think that you're better than that person sitting on the other side of you. And so for me, I try to put myself in the classroom. I try to humble myself and make sure that I'm really hearing and understanding, our conversation. And so for me, I just felt like that. I mean, I feel like that's just something that it's kind of comes natural,
Yeah.
to me in terms of just how I was raised, for sure.
That's
I kind of got an old soul, Mike.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say there's two good lessons there. One, Sunday school is important, and two, listen to your grandma. That's a
Oh,
really good lesson.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
I love that. Well, how long were you at Tech, and how does it go?
Well, I was at Tech for a while, but I'll have to take you guys through that timeline. So I stayed there from 2000 to 2002,
Okay.
and then obviously, believe it or not, Coach Dave Smith, who's the head coach at Oklahoma State, we were both we were both assistant coaches at Texas Tech under Coach Kidley. And so Dave Smith, who was really good friends with Greg Metcalf.
Mhm.
So Greg Metcalf got the job at Washington, the director job there in 2002, and he needed a sprint coach. And so I had never lived outside the state of Texas.
Yeah.
And so Dave Smith asked me, "Hey, what do you think? Hey, he's looking for a coach. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Yeah, I would be definitely be interested." And so, Coach Metcalf gave me a call. We had several conversations, and lo and behold, I was flying up to Seattle the fall of what obviously at the University of Washington on the quarter system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I had plenty of time to make decisions. So I did not, accept the job until late summer. And so, and then I went on into the fall, probably 3 weeks into the fall training at Texas Tech, until I actually, relocated to UW. And so that was my 2 year stint at Texas Tech in the beginning.
Yeah, just say don't fast forward because I know where you're going to go, because
Yeah.
there's a couple things to unpack there. First of all, I'm going to put this out into the podcast world. You mentioned Dave Smith. He has verbally committed to be on the Gill podcast.
Oh,
So
wow.
I love that I did not know Dave was at Texas Tech. That's awesome. I can't wait to bring that up when we get to do our interview. But yeah, Dave is on board. So we'll have him here coming up here in the next couple of months, so I love that. Let's talk about this. Two things. One is, let's go with this angle first. So what was it like going, this is your first time out of state, and you don't just go to like Oklahoma or maybe Arkansas or something, right? You go to the Pacific Northwest, beautiful Seattle. University of Washington's campus is gorgeous. That river right there, come on, man, it's gorgeous. What was that like for you? Southern Texan boy, went to Texas Tech, and now you're in fish market land. You're up there. How was that experience?
Oh man, it was a culture shock at first. I mean, unfamiliar territories, but yet so refreshing. It was like fresh rain. I mean, to go to the Pacific Northwest, to see the mountains and the Puget Sound and ride the ferries and the evergreen trees, the view driving to work was absolutely
Oh,
gorgeous.
sure, yeah.
And so it was tremendous experience for me.
What about the difference in Texas? If I throw a stone, no matter which direction, I'm going to hit a recruitable athlete for almost every level there is. There's just so much talent there. In Washington, a great, and specifically the whole Northwest up there, great track talent, but just not the same depth as you have just even in Texas, not even counting the Southwest or South there. How was it culturally, recruiting wise, and what you're trying to get done? Also, the goals of UW would have been different than, say, the goals at Texas Tech, as far as how you were going to get the job done by the athletes. How did you adapt and thrive in that atmosphere?
Well, I mean, I took the same energy I had recruiting at Texas Tech, and I went in with high expectations. And first of all, the track community in the state of Washington is very, it's very prominent. I mean, everybody embraced me. Everybody was excited that I accepted the position. And believe it or not, there's some talented athletes in the state of Washington.
Oh yeah, no, I believe.
Not as to your point, not as much depth as you would be in a state of Florida or a state of Texas. But I guess I could say that at that time, there wasn't a lot of track clubs. There wasn't a lot of subsidiary groups that supported the sport of track and field in Washington. You did have some great high school programs, and so for me, it was a little bit different because I didn't know a lot of the coaches. So being on the staff at UW was definitely a plus. In terms of being able to meet some of the athletes, meet some of the coaches, and some of the coaches that had been coaching for a long time. And so being there at UW, we actually started the meets there at UW.
Oh right, yeah.
So I remember starting that off. When he when he accepted the job and I came in as the assistant. we started those meets there at UW.
Yeah, the indoor facility came in right around that time. That's right. Yeah, I remember Greg was there. Yeah, yeah, and those are legendary meets. And I had always heard about them, and maybe had seen a video or something, but until you go to those meets, holy cow! I remember walking in that side door. As soon as you walk in, there's lane 8 or whatever it is, 6 right there, and it's like, oh my! And then you go into the middle, and it's like, I mean, it's actually quite impressive because you have everything going on in the middle: 2 pole vault pits, 2 high jump pits, 2 long jump pits, a throwing area, plus your announcer and timers right there, but done really well coordinated. Like, it was a
Oh
zoo
yeah.
in the sense of like, there's 1,000 people here, but I knew exactly where I was allowed to be and where I wasn't allowed to be, and safety. It was The athletes all had their room to do their thing. Yeah, very, very impressive what you guys came up with as far as like how to actually host those meets.
Yeah, so it was at those meets that I met a lot of people and created a lot of relationships to this day that that help that in terms of my recruiting and meeting a lot of people up there and actually you know letting them know what kind of coach I was and
Mhm.
what my expectations are and what the expectations were at the University of Washington. Because at the time, we had sprinters, but the emphasis was more on distance and so for me, it was a very important that I let everybody know, up in the Northwest that we were going to sprint at the UW for sure. So.
So take a step back. We like to bring massive amounts of value to those who choose to listen to us. We're always humbled at the literally thousands of people that listen. It's quite amazing. You obviously, I don't know. I'm going to state it and say obviously. You correct me where appropriate, Dion. You had to have a fairly difficult conversation with Wes for 2 things. One, you're leaving your alma mater. There's the little bit of like, just, man, why are you leaving me? This is your place. Why are you leaving? And to go to Seattle of all places. And you did it because of the timing. I'm not nothing malicious here, but it was later in the year, meaning school had already started for tech. So a little bit of a scramble on Wes's part on to replace you. How
Mhm.
did you prepare yourself for what I'm assuming is a difficult conversation with your head coach? And to your point, a head coach that a lot of reverence for him. Like, man, this dude has won it all multiple times. Was on the cusp of now winning a lot as well at Tech. We know what the future happened with him for that program and continues to happen. How did we got a lot of coaches out there that have to have difficult or scary conversations with head coaches. How did you prepare for that? And from what you can share, how did it go?
I mean, well, first of all, I had tremendous support from Coach Kitley from the beginning, and so you know, you really can't prepare for a conversation that is going to be uncomfortable. But when I talk with them, I was like, hey, this is more of a situation where, believe it or not, it was just more of an advancement in pay in terms of compensation in terms of just overall salary.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, at that time, track programs, we we didn't have the budgets that they have now,
Mm-hmm.
and track coaches wasn't making half the money that
Mm-hmm.
coaches are making now in terms of a salary, and so that was really was kind of out of Coach Kitley's hand, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the overall decision because obviously couldn't match the salary. But I mean, at that time, it was very humble beginnings at Texas Tech, and so
Mm-hmm.
we've come a long way as far as my alma mater. But nothing but great, support from Coach Kitley and and the whole staff, and so it was an easy conversation.
Oh,
Uh,
good. Yeah. And appreciate you bringing up about the, increase in compensation. We had in fact, our number one listened to most episode. And if you're listening, and again, you have not listened to this episode, you need to jump on it immediately. And if you've listened to it before, I would recommend you listen to it again. And that was the great Boo Schexnader. And one of the things that he brought up as we were talking about the profession of coaching track and field was that we don't pay. Even today, you're right. It has gotten a lot better in 2023 than it was in 2013 and 2003, etc. But we still don't pay our coaches in a general sense, like everybody, enough for what you do, what they do, how you do it, etc., and the expectations that we put on you. So, his biggest advice was, hey, especially early in your career, if you have a chance to go somewhere else and make more money, you need to do it for your own future so that you can retire one day, so you can have a family, your charity work, your passions, etc. So I appreciate you bringing that up and being open and authentic with that. So, because we're going to put a pin in that in your conversation with Wes, because it comes up again, probably here shortly. So, okay, so you're at Washington. You brought up another point that I thought was kind of interesting. And I hear about this more with football coaches, but I've heard about this plenty of time with track coaches. They talk about hiring an outsider. And what I mean by that is you weren't from the Pacific Northwest, you weren't a UW or even a Washington State alum. You knew, to your own point, you knew none of the high school coaches out there. No one knew who Dion Miller was down there, as they certainly knew about you in the Dallas and Lubbock and Texas area. How much of a crux was that really? And what did you do to overcome that? The outsider coming in and recruiting that area for UW.
Well, I mean, I think I was an unfamiliar face, and I took advantage of that in terms of the position I put myself into, and I really, I think Greg Metcalf was brilliant at the time because, obviously, Greg wanted to have sprinters. He didn't want it to be labeled as just a distance program. He wanted the program to flourish, in the events that with talent in key areas. And so you know, for me, I can say that I didn't, one thing I can say that worked in my favor is I didn't have those biases and stigmatism in terms of this is what they do at UW. This is what and so all I knew was, hey, I was All-American in track and field. I know that, you got to recruit to get the athletes. And so I just went in and tried to be the best recruiter in the Pac-10 at the time. So that was my motivation.
So you don't think it held you back that you didn't know Bothell High School and all these other schools and things like that, right? You still were Dion Miller and calling with Huskies after your name, right?
Oh yeah, I felt like the brand was strong,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like with my ability to communicate and talk with coaches, I felt like it would be a great plan of attack, and so it definitely worked. We were able to recruit some outstanding young people, and obviously I didn't really know that much about UW, but I can tell you, at the time, Barbara Hedges was the AD, and Rick Newhouser was the head football coach.
Right.
And Barbara, she was definitely someone. She's definitely someone I can tell you that had those conversations with me that really meant a lot to me. In terms of just believing in yourself and trusting your instinct. And so Barbara, she was the one that would motivate me all the time, like about hey, we can get athletes here at UW. And I remember one of my first recruiting official visits. I had taken the recruits to Applebee's. I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm from Texas at the time. Applebee's was definitely a place to go, and she was she brought me in, and she was like, oh, well, Coach, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean? I said, well,
it never is good when that's the first question.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah. This is the University of Washington. And all respect to Applebee's and that franchise, but we want our recruits to experience the Pacific Northwest. So the Daniels Brawlers, the Space Needles, the Metropolitan Grill. So I got my first lesson into how we do things at UW, and so hats off to Barbara Hedges because she definitely gave my chain and straightened me up real quick about recruiting. But that was
And
a lesson learned.
we'll stay on Barbara for a second. Was she was the AD of Washington?
She was AD.
What in the world, and I mean this in all great sense because I love hearing that. What is the AD talking to an assistant track coach? Like that's impressive to me. I mean, most of the time
Oh yeah.
we think that, oh, any AD, specifically a Power Five, but any AD doesn't care about the assistant track coach. Like, they don't even know their names. Here, the AD is like mentoring you, counseling with you, like helping you, like knows your name. That's quite impressive.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Barbara, she was definitely like a mother to me. She knew that I was a young coach. Up in the Pacific Northwest, straight out of the South, and she made sure that she looked after me. And so did Greg, and so did Marie Tuitt, who was a sports oversight at the time. But I mean, it was unheard of for me, in terms of
Yeah.
just an AD talking to a young assistant coach. But no, she took a liking to me, and she made sure that I took care of business. And um, what I got out of it, Mike, is she wasn't going to let me fail. And sometimes God has a way of putting people in your life that you never really know why, but just don't question it. And so Barbara really, 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 mentored me and gave me sound advice. And she, did not hold her tongue. I mean, if she didn't like something, she definitely, let me know. And I think that was my introduction to, what UW was about, and great institution for sure.
Well, that says a lot about her because you mentioned Rick Neuheisel as the head coach, and obviously a football, basketball, and maybe baseball programs are very important to a brand and to a school. So for her to really pay attention and reach out again to the assistant track, it would have been different to me if you were the head track coach. Like, okay, that's one of her, 20 something coaches, head coaches. Here she is. And that makes me feel like if she's reaching out to you, I just have a feeling that, she was also talking to the assistant tennis coach and the maybe the GA baseball. I mean, like felt like she had like a big umbrella to care about her staff.
Oh yeah, for sure. She definitely did.
That's awesome. So keep walking us through University of Washington. How long and how did it go?
So went very well. I was able to recruit some athletes that you know primarily you wouldn't see. I mean, I can say that Owen Richburg did a really, really good job as head coach at the University of Washington. So you with Juwan Hooker and definitely had some great sprinters there at
Right.
Washington. So you know, fast forward, there had been a little bit of sabbatical in terms of you know um, sprinters that were being recruited there at the University of Washington, and so. Had a great stint, in terms of recruiting. I mean, we were able to bring some kids in from across the country, and I would consider a successful stint there at the University of Washington. People like Ashley Lodre, Jordan
Mhm.
Bowles, Shane Charles, Ryan Brown.
Mhm.
These were athletes that were there at the time that we recruited, that were able to do some great things at a national level. And then, you know, obviously, being in the Pac-10, we were able to see a lot of the other Pac-10 schools at meets, obviously at the conference meet. And so Coach Daryl Anderson
Mhm.
uh was the assistant coach here at Arizona State at the time. He had just got promoted to associate head coach. And so his role was to find someone to come help him coach the sprints at Arizona State. And so Coach Kraft and Coach Daryl had given me a call, and asked me was I interested. Of course, I shared an office with Kelly McDonald,
Mhm.
now Kelly Bean. She's
Mhm.
with Boost Treadmill, and so Kelly had told me all about Coach Kraft and Coach Daryl, and thought it'd be a great situation for me, and so I decided to if I felt like I said okay, if I want to stay in this sprint game, I need to go somewhere and learn one, at the time, Coach Anderson was considered one of the best sprint coaches in the world, and so it was a no-brainer for me to accept the position to go to the university. I mean, to come here to Arizona State as an assistant, and that was the fall of '04.
So a lot of exciting times, because you mentioned DA, who to this day is one of the top coaches in this country, in this world for sprints. I mean, this guy, he is amazing. Love DA. So two things there. One is I want to know more about working with him. Like, how did that shape your coaching? Again, we don't talk X's and O's, but how did that shape your thought process when you were looking at athletes, and maybe expanded into recruiting and just how you carried your own self and what you did in the office for those kind of things. But also, you mentioned that you said the word try, and I'm not a big fan of the word try. Two words I'm trying to like eradicate from our vocabulary: just and try. Because with try, I'm a big Yoda fan, right? You do or do not. You don't try. Try allows you to failure to be a part of the option. And you mentioned earlier that you try to stay humble. You don't try to stay humble, my friend. You do stay humble. And so here's another example of that. You are the sprints and I assume hurdles coach at University of Washington. You direct who we're recruiting, how we're going to practice and perform, and what they're going to run in the meets. And you go to Arizona State to be DA's assistant. Now that's humbling. You're taking a step back in the sense of your role of who you are as a sprint coach. So talk to us about two things. One, start with how did you do that? I mean, some people, ego's not bad. Bad ego is bad. Some people could have allowed their bad ego to say, yeah, I know it's Arizona State and all, but I direct my own sprint program. How are you able to take that step back and maybe see the future of like, hey, if I take that step back and be DA's assistant, this is going to work out really well for me long
Yeah.
term.
Well, for me, when you look at the ideal situation, I tried to look at it more as an opportunity in terms of growth. I didn't let the position itself
Mhm.
blur my vision, in terms of my futuristic goals.
Mhm.
And so for me, I wanted to put myself in a situation to where, iron sharpened iron. I wanted to put myself in a situation where I had someone that I could, learn from, and what better person than Coach Anderson. And so, that was an easy, that sense of brotherhood. I felt like it was going to be a great combo, and from the start it was. And what led me to that decision was just my desire to be the best coach that I could be at that time. And I felt like it was the right time to make that move. And once again, it was definitely a move that I felt that I regret. But easy transition. And Coach Anderson and I, we talked about it, and what he did was he assigned me the women to coach the women, and under his leadership. And so he was going to watch over me, and make sure that I was successful, and he did that. And but we were only, believe it or not, we were only together for 4 months, because obviously he took the position at GCU just going into the spring. Uh, my first year there at Arizona State.
Now that's 4 really in-depth 4 months though.
Yeah.
Well, and people forget sometimes DA has coached countless number of 6'5", 6'6", 60-meter guy. I mean, this guy, he understands acceleration and sprint mechanics better than anybody. What was it like soaking up those 4 months, and how much did you change and grow as a coach during that? I mean, that's a short amount of time in the whole grand scheme of things, but man, that feels like we talk about the unofficial coaching education. This feels like the best class you could have ever taken.
Oh man. I mean, first of all, I was like, I wish this guy would have coached me in in college, because had I known some of the things that I learned
Mm,
under his leadership, I felt like I would have gone further in my career, track career.
right.
Yeah, so I come in, and obviously we had some success at UW, and so learning from him, I was able to just establish my own style of coaching with some of the things he's taught me that I still do today in terms of the themes and concepts that obviously DA shared with me, but yeah, I mean, I my advice to any young coach that's going into the profession, if you go in with the attitude you're just going to be a sponge, you're going to soak up all the knowledge and all the nuggets that a person like Daryl Anderson can leave with you, give you some wisdom, some pearls of wisdom. I mean, my advice is to go in with that approach. Nowadays, we have this sense of my, or I want my position.
Mm,
And a lot of times, uh, young assistants, they get the title, but they have no idea what they're getting themselves into.
mhm.
And so my advice is, if you have an opportunity to have a coach that you can, submit yourself under, please do that, because it definitely pays off. It definitely pays off in the end.
Yeah, it remains to be seen how this will actually play out. But this new, I don't know if it's a rule or allowance or whatever, of more coaches on the
Mm.
NCAA level, I think is going to be another big boon for coaching. So I know initially, at least, not a lot of people are going to add on, what is it, six more coaches or something like that. But to your part about this role of where you were with DA as an assistant sprints and hurdles coach with him, I see that more. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe someone can be the assistant to Ken Harden at Tennessee, and your assistant there, and it's like, oh man, they're going to learn so much more with that type of, call it, on the job training, and then they're going to go on, whether it's Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, high school, it doesn't matter, they're going to go on somewhere for their career, for pay and location, etc., and be 100 times better of a coach than they would have if they would have tried to learn it on their own or only learn from books and things like that, which means that their assistants are going to become better. I mean, it's just like this tidal wave effect, this domino, the little domino that hits up to the big domino. So I love that you were able to take care of that, or to take advantage of that at that point, where hopefully with this new rule or whatnot, this will allow more people, first of all, to get paid coaching. We need more of that. But then also to the education of just learning under some of these amazing, amazing coaches that we have out there.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
So 4 months of, I mean, again, the best education you could have gotten on
I
coaching.
remember at that time, we had, you know, um, I mean, 3 44-second quarter milers on the team.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
I mean, it was the mecca of 400 there at Arizona State at the time. And so tremendous opportunity, tremendous experience. It couldn't have came at a better time for me.
Mhm.
'Cause, I was in that position where I wanted to learn, I wanted to grow, and being in the Northwest, seeing Jeremy Warner and seeing Daryl Williamson doing their thing, I wanted to be a part of that, and I wanted to, really, really get with a program that we could really build something and compete at the highest level in
Mhm.
terms of sprints, relays, and hurdles, and help contribute towards winning a national championship. And so, I mean, it was great 4 months, great 4 months.
How do my own insecurities say that the worst job that anybody could ever take would be following John McDonald, and Bucky's done an amazing job. Following Judd Logan at Ashland, and AG is doing a great job. I feel so much empathy to the future person who, when Mouse retires, like that just seems like the worst. Again, it's my own insecurities. Like, that is the worst person to follow. You cannot trump them. I'm sorry, they have just done so much. How did you step into I mean, like you said, Arizona State was rolling, at this point. I mean, literally at some of the top of the NCAA's ever seen at this point. DA goes to TCU. You step into that role. How does that? How did that? Have the athletes step into that? How did you feel stepping into that?
So what happened was, Coach Kraft, he liked the idea of having split programs. And so my role primarily was to coach the women, remember? And so he wanted to keep me with that because I already established a relationship with the women.
Mm-hmm.
So we brought in Terrence Winston,
Mm-hmm.
who was a hurdler at South Carolina, also a hurdler at Barton.
Mm-hmm.
And he was on the team at South Carolina when Coach Kraft was the head coach of South Carolina.
Oh.
And so, Terry was someone he trusted. And so Terry came in and, obviously Terry and we hit it off from day one. And we're both two new coaches coming into the Pac-10. And so Terry's role was to coach the men and I was to coach the women. And we developed a system there like no other. And, it really worked out really well.
So how long were you there for this stint? Because, like I said, we already know that you're the head coach now. So you obviously come back. We don't know that you left. I guess I'm spoiler alert there. How long were you there and what happened next?
Well, stayed from 04 to 07.
Mm-hmm.
So, season of 05, 06, and 07. And, we definitely, that first year, through Coach Kraft's vision, we definitely put it to hand. Obviously, in 05, we were able to do some really good things. And then in 06, we were able to, I think we were third indoors, fourth outdoors. And then, obviously we were third in cross country as well.
Mm.
And then, 07, as everybody knows, we won the indoor and outdoor championship. So we swept indoor and outdoor team titles. And
what's that like? I mean, you're talking about I don't want to pigeonhole you and say once in a lifetime opportunity, but oh my, no one does this. I mean, winning is so hard. You know it because you've done it. How do you do that? I mean, what kind of like lightning struck? There has to be some luck involved. You have to have someone drop a baton or something like that. But you also have to fire on all cylinders across all boards. That's a really unique thing. Talk to us about that experience.
What I learned early on was that, you definitely got to have a plan, and you got to, obviously you got to have a contingency plan. Mm-hmm. And for me, being around, a mastermind coach like Coach Kraft, we pays attention to detail on everything. We just prepared ourselves for what was to come, and that started off with the recruiting. That started off with the the everyday preparation, which Coach Kraft had his hand in everything. I mean, he demanded perfection every day, in everything that we did. And so I think from that style of, as a director, being able to put his hands on everything and just check the box and make sure everybody was taking care of business. I think it started off with that. And then, recruiting talent in key areas. How do you win? You got to first identify your strengths, and then identify your weaknesses and make sure that you load yourself up, you being, your staff, with the right personnel. Obviously for us, when you look at our staff, we're going to stick to that same plan here at Arizona State. Mm-hmm. We're going to load ourselves up with talent in the areas where we have the most experience. And so Coach Kraft was able to do that, and so for me, that was something I learned early on, and in terms of how do you build a national championship team, and then of course you got to be able to recruit the talent. Mm-hmm. You got to have talent, and so that was something that I learned as well.
What was it like when you said you had a plan? First of all, was the plan actually to win all of it that year? And two, when it actually all came to fruition, what does that feel like when the actual, when you know the trophies are in your hands, no one can beat you? What is that? I can't imagine.
Well, we had an idea, finishing in the top four the year before, and so the plan was to go in and win. And I think what it feels, first of all, you're when you go into a season where you expect to win, I think it's a little bit different than not really knowing. And so going in, what it felt like, it was kind of like a breath of fresh air because, obviously for us, if we didn't win,
Mm,
definitely going to be, a letdown.
yeah.
So for me, boy, it definitely took the pressure off of me because everybody contributed. I'm talking about Louis Quintana to Dave Dumble, Coach
Hmm.
Kraft, myself. We all had a hand into us winning the indoor and outdoor titles. So it definitely was, a load lifted off, but to say, a great experience, for all the work that we put into it as coaches, winning a national championship is definitely humbling to see it all come together, and it's a feeling like no other.
Mm,
It's like fresh rain, man. It's just so refreshing, and for the athletes, I think it is definitely a game changer in terms of life.
mm,
To be able to start the season out and finish up with the championship. You're talking about the best of the best. I can tell you that that experience alone helped me throughout my career,
mm,
and I know what I helped those individuals that was on that team.
yeah.
And we won in the women, and so believe it or not, the men in '08 won indoors, and I think like I said, winning is contagious,
Mm,
and so the men won it outdoors in '08, which goes to my timeline, like you said. So we won the national championship there and in Sacramento, and obviously Coach Kitley and I, were very tight. We still, we were having conversations and we talked all the time. And so, had an opportunity to go back to Texas Tech, and so it came a little bit late in the summer, but obviously for me, um, it was an opportunity for me to go back, and this was one of those situations where it made no sense for me to leave, you know,
mhm, mhm,
but yeah, when you looked at that time, the state of Arizona was in a recession, and I was a young coach that had a family to feed, and at that time, living on the West Coast, it was beginning to become expensive, and so without having any opportunity to advance and pay. I remember, like, we bonused out, and
mhm,
we checked every box in terms of conference, regionals, and nationals in terms of winning.
mhm,
So there wasn't any opportunity for advancement in pay or increase in pay because of the state recession. Had nothing to do with Arizona State,
mhm,
Center of Athletics. And so, it was a little bit different in the state of Texas. I mean, Coach Kitley at the time, when I left because of financial reasons as well. I mean, the salary quadrupled in terms of what I was making as a young assistant starting out to what he offered me to come back as an assistant. And so it was really a no brainer for me in terms of we were getting ready to have our third child, Deanna,
mhm.
and so I definitely needed the income. So
So I said put a pin in it when I talked about that conversation with Wes, a difficult conversation to have of, hey, I'm leaving. I know it's my alma mater. Yeah, no, coach, there's nothing you can do to keep me here. And it kind of goes back to the story of you and I met of, yeah, Mike has nothing for me, but who knows? Mike,
Yeah, yeah,
Mike be based on Mike might put me on podcast one day and blast me. So I better be nice
yeah,
to him.
yeah, for sure.
And so here is one you easily could have said, yeah, Wes, peace, see you later. Been a little standoffish and like, look, man, you can't, it's your reason I'm not getting paid. So I've got to go to Seattle, blah, blah, blah. And instead you handled it professionally at a young age too, by the way.
Yeah,
Something you talked about your upbringing. I think that brought into of how you would handle talking
yeah,
to Wes. And it comes literally full circle. And now here you are back as an
mm,
assistant coach at your alma mater. That's why I said put a pin on it, because I was like, oh, this comes back. Like you had to leave the situation good enough that they would want you to come back,
I'm
and
back.
they did, and it happened.
Hmm. Yeah, so summer of '07 made that 23-hour drive. I think it was more than 23 hours, but
Oh man.
made that drive from Arizona to Lubbock, and it was definitely exciting to go go back to my alma mater. And so at that time,
How many years in between was that?
that was from '02 to
Yeah.
'07, so 5 years.
So in 5 years, how much changed? I mean, you talked about a lot had to have changed, because you talked about the salary quadruples. Now they're paying more appropriate salaries for assistants and track and field coaches there. How much did the university change? That's 5 years. It seems like no time at all. However, in 5 years, a lot seems to have changed.
Well, things change. I mean, I think you got to remember there in '05, I believe, '06. I mean, that was one of Texas Tech's best years in terms of teams.
Mhm.
So, going into it, the summer of '07, the program had went down a little bit, and they were in kind of a reloading phase or rebuilding phase, and so although the campus itself had had grown
Mhm.
astronomically, the program more budget, obviously the demand was higher because the Big 12 had definitely made a name for itself in terms of competition, with Texas A&M and
Mhm.
all those schools, in the conference. It definitely was a competitive conference at the time. Um, and so it was I knew I was getting myself I knew what I was getting myself into going back. And the goal was to definitely get the program back up and running. And Coach Rocklight was on the staff. I was
Mhm.
Coach Dave Murray, Diane Woolley, myself, Coach Kitley, Cliff Felkins,
Holy
uh,
cow.
and so yeah, it was great staff.
Yeah.
And so for me, you know, we just hit the ground running, Mike. Hit the ground running, and the rest is history.
Anything different here in round two? I mean, you're a different person. Who you were 5 years ago is different than who you were at this second time. Anything that you did that you can think about that you did differently? Like, oh man, I can't believe I did this in the first time around. Now I'm doing it this way. Whether it's recruiting, handling your in-office work, how you handle your assistant coach, the staff in total. Anything differently 5 years from removed?
I think I was more focused, a little bit more goal oriented. I had a basis of understanding as to how to build a good sprint program, and so going into it, I was being the sprinter that I am, aggressive in nature. I was a little demanding in terms of I had some negotiables and I had some non-negotiables that I definitely expressed before I took the position. And so I went in with it understanding, by learning from Coach Anderson, learning from Coach Kraft of the basis of how you build a team to win. And so I didn't so much go in with the idea I'm just going to try to get people to run fast in all events. I went in it with the same strategy of how do you build a championship team versus a championship sprint, sprint event group. And so went in it with, the idea of, okay, hey, we've got to recruit, athletes, you know, that could be successful in the events that we're going to be successful, in here in the sprints here at Texas Tech. And so when I looked at the Big 12, I said, here's a pocket where I feel like we could be successful, and that's coaching the hurdles.
Mm.
And so for me, I looked at it as like, okay, we're going to coach, we're going to have short hurdlers, we're going to have long hurdlers here, we're going to have a 4x4. And I felt like that, of course, the 400 was very, very, very rich and highly competitive. But I felt like the hurdles and having a 4x4 and coaching in long sprints was going to be the plan of attack. And so that was my mindset. And I developed that from, winning the national championship and conference titles at Arizona State, is that you got to go in it with a plan. You got to understand that just because, you may think you are a great coach at coaching, certain events, you know, um, you know, um, you want to have a plan to where you're going to score as many points as you can. And how do you do that when you're in a highly competitive conference like in the SEC or in the Big 12 or the Pac-12? It's very hard to do. It's easier said than done.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, I just look at that pocket, look at those holes. And of course, Coach Steve Sylvie was the guy that I replaced, and he had did a great job recruiting, and obviously for him, he saw where the hurdles as being a place as well. So I took advantage of that, and inherited some of the guys that he had had there, and took that, put that plan of attack in terms of coming back.
So you're looking at your group of sprints and hurdlers there at Tech round 2 and how it affects the team. So whether it's for Big 12 titles or trying to win a trophy at the NCAAs, that is a little bit of a different mindset than maybe most of us have. Most of us are, hey, how can I make, how I help the team? I make the sprints and hurdles the best that it can be with the amount of scholarship, et cetera, that I have. So you're kind of thinking more globally than just centrally, locally. You mentioned earlier that you're very goal oriented. What did you have any kind of, at this point, did you have any kind of goal of becoming a head coach, or were you perfectly, not everyone wants to be a head coach, and not everyone should be a head coach. What was your mindset, any goals towards that type of advancement in your career?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to be a head coach one day. And obviously, just from observation and being under, some great head coaches. Greg Metcalf, Greg Kraft. I mean, I felt like I was well prepared going into the situation, and thinking of it, like you said, more of, from a macro level, a micro level. And you gotta definitely put your ego aside if you're gonna think that way. Because you could be blurred. Your goals can be blurred or distracted by just your individual goals. And but you got to remember, we still are, we're a team. Track team is still a team, and the whole goal is to win a team title. Now there are going to be individual accolades that we're going to accomplish as we go along the way, but having that, like you said, that feeling of winning, it's a feeling like no other, to a form a form of sisterhood and brotherhood that you just can't, you just can't replace that. And so for me, it was easy to have that mindset because, you know, I had the experience of winning conference and winning national championships. And so for me that, there was no ego, there was no ego or, that I had going into it, Mike. So definitely exciting. And, I felt like that was going to be, if I wanted to keep winning,
Mhm.
if I wanted to, what could I do for my alma mater? Because remember, at the time, Texas Tech had never won a national championship.
Mhm.
And so, going into it, it was definitely eye-opening because, the mindset, that the, my athletes had developed at Arizona State, was totally different, when I returned, and so it was difficult because once again I was inheriting, another event coach's
Mhm.
athlete, and so that was tough because, just learning personalities and getting everybody to do it, learn a new way of doing things. It's tough when you're in a position of leadership for sure.
You mentioned goal setting. I want to stay on that for a little bit. I was just at some training actually last week with this not a sports psychology, but a psychology, organizational psychology. And he was talking about what we're learning more and more about goal setting is that when we have a big goal, we don't typically fail to reach that goal because of the roadblocks and hurdles that are placed in front of us. That's typically how we feel like we miss goals because, oh, I didn't expect this to come up and that set me back, etc. It's actually because a clear path to a lesser goal opens up as we're shooting for this big moon in the sky. Well, the path to just go to another country becomes a lot easier. So you've
Uh,
got you already have at this point. You said you early in your career, I want to be a head coach, and you're learning from great people. You mentioned, Greg Kraft. I love him to death. Greg Metcalf. A lot of Gregs, by the way. um, uh, Greg Whitley, Wes Kitley. You're learning from these amazing coaches as you're striving for that goal. It's much easier to the path to becoming one of the country's best sprints and hurdles coaches. Much easier now. Like, oh, well, I'll just focus on that instead of focus on the big goal. So what are you doing to focus on that big goal to become a head coach? And so I think of things like, you now know as a head coach, it's not just what you do on the track. I mean, that actually becomes a much smaller point. There's leadership of the entire program. There's fundraising. There's alums. There's scheduling. There's budgeting. What were you doing at this time to become better at that side of becoming a head coach?
Well, you got to remember, like when I started off, I mean, I kind of did a lot of the grunt work. I did the travel. I did the stuff that a lot of people didn't want to do, in terms
Mm-hmm,
of
mm-hmm,
itinerary and things like that. And so, for me, when you work for Coach Kinley at the time, he definitely gave everybody, responsibilities. And so for me, one of the things that he charged me with was just making sure that I recruited, all areas. And so,
ah,
I decided to not be selfish. And, I recruited, every event that I could possibly event. Of course,
hmm,
all the coaches recruited, their events as well. But, anytime I had an opportunity to go see another athlete or help another coach, get another athlete in, I did that. Obviously for me as well, I tried to make sure that you know, I help Coach Kitley, in any way, form, fashion, and so in terms of, whether it was, helping with the Under Armour account, uh,
mm, mm-hmm,
uh, helping with facilitating, compliance, liaison to just overall budgeting. I tried my best to, to help him as, at the time I consider myself, you know, um, a tenured coach under his program,
mm.
and so I knew what he liked, I knew what he wanted, and so I tried to make sure that I did that and make myself available for anything, for track camps to whole 9 yards, to help Coach Kelly run his program.
How early, as you've given some great advice to young coaches and young people that want to become a coach, what advice would you give as far as how early to start dipping your toes into those other aspects? No one gets into coaching track so that they can schedule or they can budget or they can compliance. They get into it so they can have their toes in the sand pit and coach long jumpers or hold the stopwatch and bark out the splits for quarter milers or 110 hurlers, whatever. Right. But again, the reality is you're running a business. So there's a lot to it. You mentioned shoe accounts, et cetera, compliance. How early do you recommend a coach to start asking? Because some head coaches keep it all, right? They're not delegating like Wes and some others would. How early do you recommend that young coach to start? Hey, can I help out with scheduling or budgeting or compliance, wherever you need help, coach? How early in their
I
career do you
recommend
recommend?
it as early as possible because uh, that's where you really learn about our sport and how we the business of our sport and
Mm-hmm.
how the operations of our sport. And I think those were invaluable experiences that I learned along the way. I mean, I remember back in the day, we didn't have you know you know credit cards that we travel around. So we would travel around with fanny packs of cash to give out
Cash.
and things like that. So that was that was a lot of stress, to
Yeah.
walk around and it's pin relays with a fanny pack full of cash, But
Yeah,
so
how did more coaches not get robbed back then? That's
I
true.
know
It was cash and receipts. That's all you had. Calling cards. That's all you had was
yeah,
money, receipts, and calling cards.
exactly. So for me, it was it definitely kept me, on my P's and Q's, really learn, I learned, how to value my time,
Mhm.
as an assistant coach. And then I think the ultimate thing that it will teach you as a young assistant is understanding the why, understanding, some of the stressors that a director has,
Mhm.
and understanding why there's certain things that your head coach is going to ask you to do. And I think that helped me early on understand the basis of things,
Mhm.
to where some of the emotion was just taken out, because I mean I understood it, because it's like, hey, I've been there, I started out, I understand it has to be done, and why you have to pay attention to detail.
Dion, you're extremely intelligent, extremely humble. So I feel like I can ask this and you'll give a legit answer here, not a pat. This is what Mike wants to hear answer. So with all those different things, again, you talked about learning the profession of coaching. It's not just writing up a workout. It's a whole lot more. Again, it might be, a very small amount is actually coaching, specifically on the coaching and specifically on the college and specifically on the Power Five side. What did you struggle with the most as you were learning all these different aspects of the profession of coaching? What was a part that you're like, oh man, I did not think I'd have to do this and this? I struggled a little bit here. Is there anything you can think of that had to take a little extra effort from you?
I think I struggled with, especially being back at my alma mater, I struggled with, um, you know, the amount of work that I had to put into it,
Mm,
and then trying to just get everybody to be on the same page
mm,
of uh, of the overall basis. Like we talk about the why, what's motivating you. I think that was tough because at the time, when I came back, obviously in comparison, you're like, okay, this is my alma mater. It's very dear to me. I'm putting a lot of personal emotion into the
mm.
job,
Sure.
as well as physical. And so for me, when when you're surrounded around your counterparts, and that's not necessarily their motivation, and that's not necessarily their drive. It's hard because, especially when you come in and you're like, okay, I'm the lowest paid on the on the staff, and I'm putting in the work.
Mm,
So for me, no pun intended, but for me, that was tough, because not everybody is going to have the same energy that you have,
Mm,
and that's okay, and that's okay. And so my advice is to young coaches: do not allow that to be an distraction, the
mm.
distraction, because it was very humbling to me. Because at the time, I thought I was all that in a tic tac because I won nationals and I came from Arizona State.
Right. Yeah.
I had to understand that I was there. I was on a staff with Rocklight, who was at LSU,
Oh, yeah.
Diane Woolley, who was at Texas.
Amazing.
I mean, John Murray, who won several national
Hmm.
championships under Coach Kitley.
Hmm.
Uh, so for me, I was the neophyte in the room. You know, these coaches had already won all this. They were once me. When they were my age, and so it was an eye opener to me. Is that hey,
Yeah.
don't allow yourself to get too high and mighty.
Mm,
But I can't say that was tough because
mm,
you put a lot of work into it, and you wanna be compensated well. So once again, at that time, that was tough. In terms of just having to endure the fact that nobody's going to put the energy into it that you're putting into it, in terms of your motivation and your drive. And so you can't allow what you may feel like that's owed to you,
mm,
distraction. You need to reflect back and understand the position that you're in, and do that, and honor that, honor your head coach and do your job, and leave, the rest will take care of itself. So for me, I had to learn that, you
mhm,
know as a
mhm,
young coach. I had to learn that, you know you don't have to, you don't have to, press, or expect someone to give you a pat on the back all the time. You need to make sure that, first of all, you have to have a love for what you're doing, and number two, you have to have a plan. And so that was tough because not having that person or someone that I could, I really didn't have that many people that I could share that with,
mhm.
uh, because of my situation of coming back to my alma mater for the second time.
So, for the sake of time that we have remaining here, so you go from Texas Tech back to Arizona State.
Um, so no,
No, okay.
so fast forward, my first season was spring of '08,
Okay.
and then stayed there 7 years.
All right.
And I got approached by Dan Waters, who's the head coach at Alabama,
Okay, that's right.
and he and I had become good buddies there when he coached at A&M.
Hmm.
And so 7 years had passed. Dan had ended up becoming the head coach at Alabama. He needed a sprint coach to come in, and he wanted two sprint coaches, so he hired me and Coach Brian Wiley from South Plains. In 2015, and I decided to leave. I was associate head coach at the time,
Hmm.
and I realized real quick, I'm like, you know what, Coach Keeley's not retiring anytime soon. So if I want to become a head coach, and Dan and I talked about this, he said if you could come in and you could be successful as a sprint coach in the SEC, I think you will make a name for yourself to where, coaches, would look at you, or ADs would look at you as a pretty much a accomplished coach that you've coached in three major conferences.
So you
And
saw this as an advancement towards that big goal of like,
yes,
okay, I got to go prove myself in the SEC. Fine, if that's the conference that is all that, then I better go there and be successful. Okay, all right.
so
So
pretty
your
much,
eyes are still on that big prize.
yeah, my eyes are still in the big prize. Pretty much a lateral move. And
Mm-hmm.
so I moved from Texas Tech to Alabama. And I stayed at Alabama from 2000. My first season there was 2016. And I stayed there 2 years at Alabama. And summer of 18 is when Coach Kraft had decided that he was going to step down and needed to have a replacement. And so at the time, I decided to, pursue the position. Obviously, they had already had a replacement, and then that person decided to step down, and then so they needed to find another replacement, and so that's where I came into play to where I'm like, hey, it's a great opportunity. Apply for the job. I got hired as a kind of an assistant head coach in waiting. And so I accepted the job, which Coach Waters helped me get the job. I mean, he talked with Don Baki here and Ray Anderson here, and gave me recommendation to come back, and and so came here the summer of 2018, and started all over again, brother.
Repeat, repeat. Now, what we don't do, we hear this a little bit more in football, the head coach in waiting. What's that like for you in that role at this time? And how does Greg work with you on that? And Greg and I need to talk with him. I have a really in my heart an amazing story of Greg, something that he shared with me that I'd love to share with others, but I don't have permission to share their story, so I can't. But the genesis of that story is he is one of the more selfless people that I have ever met. I mean, I'm gonna say to his detriment, meaning like if there's a thing that will be good for him, but it's better for other people, my experience is he will choose what is better for the other people. So here he is with this head coach in waiting, someone he knows. You're not a complete stranger. You're on staff. He knows your abilities and personalities and strengths and weaknesses. How do you guys navigate this head coach in waiting aspect, which is very unique in track?
Yeah, first of all, obviously I knew his style of coaching. I was to come in as an assistant coach, with the associate head coach's title. But so Greg definitely gave me opportunity to make some head coaching decisions. And I embraced it. I said, hey, yeah, I'm willing to do that. And so Greg really walked me through, from point A to point B in terms of, this is how you do things. This was the expectations, here's what Arizona State's looking for. And so from day one, he just really, took me under his wings and talked to me daily about, he allowed me to make decisions, futuristic decisions in terms of budgeting, that obviously he wouldn't be here at the time, but rest assured he still by role, him being a director at the time, he really allowed me to be in a position where I could just watch him lead Arizona State, and allowed him allowed himself to be vulnerable in terms of me observing him, and on his way out. So that was definitely a great thing that Coach Kraft did for me.
Yeah, that's one of the impressive things is, as you guys are working together on this, there are decisions that need to be made that would affect 2 to 3 to 4 years from now. While you guys obviously worked very well together, you assumably had some different thoughts on some different things. So you guys were not the same person. So there were things that maybe you wanted to do a little different. You're such a humble person. You wanted to honor Greg as well in his last year to 2 years as he's going to retire. Greg, the selfless guy he is, he wanted to make sure, well, I want to give Dion control over these things too, because this is going to affect him after I'm gone. it's just the melding of those that seems to be very, like, you guys had to, again, this is assumption, so you correct where necessary. You guys had to have some really unbelievable trust with each other and some really understanding that here are two adults that I may say something that you might get offended. Like I'm going to differ my opinion than yours and vice versa, but it's okay. We're two people that are still trying to do the same goal together.
But you got to understand, as a student athlete, I had never won a team title, never won the individual title, as a student athlete in running track and field. So my experience under Coach Kraft was, I learned how to be a champion. Obviously, I understood the Kraft way. I understood, what it meant, and like I said, full circle, the basis as to why he had to be a certain way when he, needed to be in terms of just, asserting his authority. And so for me, it was really like coming home. It was really good to come back and be a part of something that I had left. And so, it was business as usual, man. Kendrick Spears, we both had, a lot of things to share and to talk about, a lot of experiences we had in the past. You got to remember at that time it was just overflow for Coach Kraft. I mean, he had won, obviously two more, national championships. So, four altogether. And so that was very that was something that, I saw coming, when I left. So, Coach Kraft is an overflow, man. I mean, he's accomplished a lot here at Arizona State. And so it was refreshing, man. It was refreshing just to work on Coach Kraft for that year.
And I think, didn't he have a son on the team that was a senior or something?
Yes.
So he's getting his son's on the team, getting ready to
His
graduate.
son had already graduated.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
My favorite, I couldn't not talk about Coach Kraft without telling my favorite story. I had a meeting with Coach Kraft and the staff, and I don't think you were on staff at this point. And I had this kind of almost like a pea green. It wasn't a green. It was not, because I know Coach Kraft is listening. It was not an Oregon green shirt. I rest assured it was not. It was a kind of a lightish pea green type of shirt that had Gill on it. And so I'm meeting with the staff, and I said something, and he looks at me and he goes, well, we all noticed you wearing your Oregon green shirt up in here. And I was like, oh, no. And I tell you what, he was busting my chops. I appreciate him for that. And I had to quickly explain, no, it's not Oregon, I swear, blah, blah, blah. But that really, it stuck with me. And now when I go to meet with coaching staffs, I work like it's conscious of me of what shirt I'm wearing color wise.
Okay.
Of whether it's at least neutral, like an all black shirt or something like that. But I don't want to go into meet with the Auburn staff and I'm wearing an Alabama red, or, walk into Texas Tech staff and I'm wearing the Texan orange. Like, it's like, oh, there's respect here. I'm on your I'm a guest at your campus. So it really stuck with me when Greg kind of busted my chops there. And I was like, yeah, what am I doing wearing any kind of color green on Arizona State's campus? This Pac-12 country, they're rivals here. What are we doing? Yeah. So I love that he trusted me enough that he could bust my chops in front of the staff and have some fun with it.
No, coach, he's going to tell you how it is.
Oh man, I love him. All right, so the last few minutes we have here, Dion, you're the head coach. By the way, I don't know if I know you just think I'm part of the team, but I'm representing.
There, man.
Okay, I'm just making sure you didn't say anything. It kind of hurt my feelings, but I was like, oh, he just thinks of me as part of the team. So it was, of course, I'm wearing the Arizona State, of course.
Oh yeah, we both decided to wear black and white, a little different flavor, but
that's right.
My pitchfork on there.
Oh yeah, I see it, baby. So now you've had this big goal of becoming a head coach, and you've done it. You are now the head coach of Arizona State University. What was it like? I don't know whether it's that first day you went into the office and now your nameplate's there, not Coach Kraft's. What was it like, and how do you stay away from? This was my fault in my career. So my whole career was to get to the SEC, and I got there, and I felt like I had a ride. Like I got there, like this was my whole career. And in fact, I look back at it now, it's like, oh, if I'd have had more of an air of like, oh, okay, well now the job starts. I felt like, oh, I did it. I'm an SEC. I'm golden. And that was not the right attitude. How do you, first of all, what was it like when you officially become the head coach there at Arizona State? And then how do you, with your humbleness, how do you fight that, what's great, you're the head coach and that's awesome. That was the big goal, but you're just getting started. Otherwise, you might as well stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, lots of nerves. I mean, I can say that I was really nervous in terms of, was everybody going to like me? Was I going to say the right thing?
Okay.
Now I'm in charge of everything. Are the kids going to like me? Or, so that was something that, I was really nervous about, but, very exciting. Yeah, everybody was excited for me. But now, everything, relies on me.
Stops at your desk, buddy. That's right.
Up to me, I'm the guy. And so it comes with a lot of expectations, but at that time, obviously, 23 years have passed, and so I feel like, hey, it's just business as usual. Now I've got to not only coach my event group, but now I've got to coach coaches.
Mm.
So I took, looked at it in that mindset, and you got to remember it was tough now because needless to say, it was, it was just, it was, expected that I retained a couple, some coaches, and that's tough to do, and so I wasn't able to hire all of my coaches, in terms of starting out. So to mesh and gel with coaches that at one point in time you guys were on the same, equally yoked in terms of the playing field, and responsibilities, to now for me to now be the guy, that was tough, because obviously they had to change, their perspective on things, and obviously, I had to, change as well, and so that was tough, Mike. That was definitely tough, but you know, to begin my head coaching career here at Arizona State, I can, it definitely was, I can say the first feeling I got was, this is, this is definitely a soft landing for me because,
Mm.
although Arizona State's one of those programs to when you talk about being in a national conversation of winning, we've always been in there since I've, since
Mm-hmm.
I've involved with Arizona State, or you know, and since I've coached at Arizona State, we've kind of always been in the conversation, and so that stress and those
Mm-hmm.
expectations that any head coach is going to have in terms of you being now the guy,
Mm-hmm.
and can you help you know produce some of those President Cups points and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
things that your AD wants you to do, finish top 3 in the conference, and always finish top 15 nationally. So, I think there was a little bit of a soft landing because, I'm familiar with Arizona State. I understand, I kind of know what it's like to win here.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely had a plan because of, what we've done in the past. And, hats off to Coach Kraft in terms of teaching me how to win.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right, man. Wrap us up here. What's got you excited about Sun Devil track and field the next year or two here as you kind of set your 2, 3, 4, 5 year game plan in? What's got you excited?
As we dive deeper to deeper depths to go to higher heights, I think I can tell you that what's exciting about Arizona State track and field, we're getting a new facility. Uh, you know, at one point in time, we were thought to have one of the nicer facilities in the country. Our facility was built in 1977, so it's lots of history there. So we haven't built a track here at Arizona State since 1977. So, stay tuned to that. We're going to have a new track. So I'm excited about our alumni. I'm excited about our track fans. to get track and field meets up and running again, in the near future here at Arizona State. And then to say, I think when you look at where we are and where we are in our program, our women are a little bit down, but our men are soaring really, really high. And and I'm just excited about the recruiting efforts that my coaches have put forth, recruiting men and women. And so I think the program is in a really good position for the future. As we wean ourselves off the COVID era. I can tell you that had a really good showing indoors, but by far we didn't really show the nation what our men's team is made of, and so we really feel like going out to the outdoor season, we got a lot of things to prove to ourselves as a team, as well as letting the nation know that Arizona State is here to stay in terms of what the nation expects out of Arizona State. So I'm excited, very happy. Health is good, staff is good, and so we're ready to go into this outdoor season.
Well, we're excited because it all culminates in your home state this year. We're going back to Austin, so
Yes,
you guys will have the advantage on what the temperature and weather will be like, because it's a whole different ball game down in Austin, much like it is at Arizona State when it comes to the heat wave that'll be there. So, Dion, man, thank you so much. One of the most valuable things that you can give us is your time. We're just coming off of NCAA indoors, you're outdoor starting. You easily you don't have time to be talking to us for 2 hours, by the way. Before a little behind the scenes before we started recording, Dion said, well, I just don't know that I'm going to have 2 hours of anything to tell anybody about. And I said, you'll be surprised. And here we are, literally at the 2-hour mark. And it's just been a couple of hours of just chock full of value, man. I'm so honored to know your journey. I love your journey. It's a journey of searching. It's a journey of coming back, coming back to your high school alma mater, back to your college alma mater, back to your championship alma mater there at Arizona State. And I'm just so excited to continue watching you grow as a leader. You've always been a great leader and a humble. And again, that goes back to the day I met you and how you interacted with me. And so now to see you in the captain's chair, I'm just so excited to see you continue to build that program. And so just so thankful you spend time with us today and share with our listeners your journey, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say thank you to you, Mike, as well. And thank you to all the people that's helped me, from, Coach Kidley to Greg Metcalf to Greg Kraft, to Dan Waters, to Daryl Anderson. These are the people, Dave Smith. These are the people, I wouldn't be here today if it hadn't not been for those people that I mentioned. So thank you to you all, guys, for helping me and being there for me in my coaching career.
That's a heck of a Mount Rushmore, my friend. All right. Thanks, guys, for being here today this week. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did listening to Dion's journey and learning just where he's come from. I mean, really, what I love about it is nothing fancy, nothing, not highfalutin and was given everything. He busted his butt and worked for everything. And I think it shows in his attitude and how he's carried himself throughout that career. So thanks for coming here this week. We appreciate you. Again, if you want to leave a review on Apple, I'll read it out loud here. I'm not afraid. I will do it. I promise you. So join us next week. We'll do it all over again as we uplift and honor coaches from around the country. Have a great week, everybody.